Hello! Shoyan here. I'm a carpenter based in Japan. Today, I will be installing Japanese cypress floorboards from the living room to the bathroom on the first floor. I'm doing my favorite floor installation. Well, not so much my favorite. First, I install a kamachi at the entrance. Without cutting a joint or processing the timber, I simply place a 1.82 meter piece of wood. Like the last project, I used Japanese cypress for the kamachi. It comes from the same tree as the floorboards. The entrance kamachi is usually made of the same wood or harder as the floorboards. For example, the okova, ash, shioji, and sen are all suitable. Since the kamachi and stairs are kicked around the most, soft woods like cedar or spruce are not used, even if they are beautiful. For a kamachi and stairs, it's better to use hardwood.
どっちがごっついんや。これ8分や。これ5分よりごっついわ。ほら。なあ。たまたまじゃないやろ、これ。
Japanese cypress floorboards were delivered twice for this site, which meant that the first and second deliveries were milled on separate days. Timber is milled at a sawmill according to order. Due to human milling, there may be slight variations in size, depending on the adjustment of the blades. This time, 2 boards thickness were delivered. I'm planning to use the thicker one as the main floorboard on the kamachi side. I start the process. For this building, plywood underlay is used without joists, so the height of the kamachi is not the same as when joists are used. I will cut off the kamachi corner and place that part on the sill. Since the plywood underlay is only 24mm thick, there isn't much left. Since the part to be cut off is relatively large, I use a circular saw and a groove cutter. This time, the kamachi overlaps the sill only half as much as usual. Because only a few parts of the kamachi overlaps the sill, I notch both ends of the sill so that the kamachi is firmly supported on it. If joists are used, a thick floorboard called netaless is used, and 90mm will overlap the sill, so there's no need to notch both ends of the sill. Since the plywood underlay is 24mm thick and the floorboard is 50mm thick this time, I make the sill so that it securely supports the kamachi. Now I finish and install the kamachi. I have notched both ends of the sill too much by 1mm. Therefore, I make a shim using the same wood as the sill and set it to adjust the height. When using solid wood, I chamfer the kamachi's top widely, more than 1mm. The floorboard's ends will overlap the chamfer. If you use building material instead of wood, you can chamfer just 0.5mm wide or not at all, but solid wood shrinks. Since the kamachi will shrink and each floorboard's dryness differs, there will be some level differences. This is why I chamfer the kamachi more than usual. I then screw the kamachi's middle firmly. In the past, we used to notch the kamachi and nail it, but nowadays, screws are used instead. As much as possible, I screw vertically. Now that the kamachi is installed, I am preparing for the floorboards. I measure to calculate the number of floorboards needed, and also to confirm the joint's position. I plan to install the floorboards from the angle piece side of the sashes. To determine the number of boards to use, I measure the entire house. It would be great if it could be divided by a nice round number. This house will have a large area of floorboards. I ensure that the narrow boards are not used, especially on the external and internal corners and the corridor's edge. Floorboards will be laid at right angles to the entrance kamachi, which means the floorboard's ends will attach to the kamachi. Once the first floorboard is installed, I will continue installing them until they are all in place, staggering them by 910mm, half the length of a floorboard. Now I install the first row of floorboards. A floor's quality is determined by the first row of flooring. It feels good when it is completely straight. If this doesn't go well, the floorboards will gradually tilt, which is not easy to fix. Due to the air barrier membranes installed on the walls, the corners of the walls are not at right angles. There are also tapes attached. I think around the column is the most challenging. So I remove the bottom groove side of the floorboard and then install the first floorboard without damaging the air barrier membrane. I used wood glue to install the floor up until the previous project. This time, I'm using silicone adhesives. As the construction method has changed, I am using silicone adhesives, which is similar to caulking. It seems it's a newly released product. Now, I install the floorboards. I use 4mm by 38mm flooring staples. I apologize for the late explanation, but the wood is knotless Japanese cypress, 15mm thick by 150mm wide. It's a high quality board. The floorboard's end is cut slightly inward, and the top is chamfered slightly wider than usual with sandpaper. I attach the floorboard's ends without tonguing grooves. During installation, I staggered the boards so that the end joint is in the middle of the adjacent board. Instead of cutting and installing each board individually, I cut all the floorboards beforehand in quantities that can be installed within half a day to 1 day, depending on whether the area is easy to work in. After that, I balance the color of the boards and place them temporarily. Although it is a hassle, I pile up the boards after temporarily placing them and install them. There's an exposed round pillar in the center of the living room. I will cut off the pillar bottom to install the floorboards. I usually install the floor on the joists, so when cutting off the pillar bottom, my body is in the cross space at the same height as the sill. By crouching a little, I can cut the pillar with a handsaw without any guide. But when using the plywood underlay, I need to cut the bottom using a handsaw on the floor. The work is not tricky, but my posture is bad. When cutting plywood underlay with a handsaw, my line of sight does not match the mark. In order to make work easier, I send out the board and set it up where it should be cut. I won't make a mistake if I place the handsaw on the board when cutting the pillar. Again, the work is not difficult, but the posture is tough.
Yeah.
I measure the round pillar's bottom. I make a full-scale pattern of the section out of cardboard since it's tricky. Whenever I work around pillars or bay windows, I make a full-scale pattern first and use it. I feel safer that way. You can also make it from a piece of floorboard, but it takes time. Cardboard is much easier because you can use scissors. At the pillar center, I join the floorboard ends. It is possible to use one floorboard without joining two boards. However, if you don't join the ends here, you must use the Yariokuri technique. This means the floorboard should be fully inserted into the pillar's groove, then moved backwards. For a round pillar like this, you must cut the wood straight, plus cut off more of the bottom. The bottom of the pillar will be less sturdy as a result. It would be fine if the column wasn't load-bearing, but it is. I cut off as little as possible and join two floorboards in the center of the pillar to make it stronger.
こういうこっちゃな。スイートらんねえけどな。ちょっと気に入らんねって。動揺しとる。
あと 0.5。 あ、もう一回 OK。
Like this, the floorboard's ends will be attached to the entrance kamachi. There is a room in front of the entrance, so the floor has become quite large. Now I'm making an access panel in the storage room behind the stairs. This house will have 2 crawl-space access panels. The foundations of this house separate the airtight area into 2 parts, so 2 access panels are needed. This is my first time building 2 access panels. I built a frame to make it airtight. Oh. This is an airtight access panel. It does not have any gaps between its frame and panel, unlike the normal type. It's my first time building one. In any case, I have always disliked the installation of cross-space access panels. Although I hate them so much, I still have to do them. First, I make the panel. It is 450mm square. There were offcuts of 3 150mm Japanese cypress boards, just the right size when joining 3. However, it will take 4 boards if I cut the wrong size, even by a little. It's not a big deal if the access panel is located where people won't step on it so much. Anyway, it's better to use as few boards as possible to be sturdy. I joined 3 boards. It's not the crawl-space access panel itself that's a problem. I'm not good at working under the floor. Inspectors often ask, "Carpenter, can you take a look around the house?" when they do termite inspection for storage. When I go under the floor, I often get sick. Despite bringing a bright light into the crawl space, I feel sick after 10 to 15 minutes. If I get ill and call an ambulance, I wonder if I will be able to get help from the emergency rescue team. I'm faint-hearted, even though if I'm confident in my boss. Oops! Ceiling access panels are easy to install, but crawl-space access panels require many parts. Just looking at them makes it seem like a hassle to assemble a panel door. I will also caulk between the plywood underlay and aluminum. To make the panel airtight, I must go that far.
Ah, つきすぎたんや。はい、汚れません。OK。
The first floor flooring is complete. It's a knotless Japanese cypress. It looks like a sacred dancing stage in a shrine, which is exceptionally gorgeous. It's beautiful. Where's the price? That's all for today. Thanks for watching.